Good afternoon and welcome to the Regulatory Committee. My name is Councillor Fradgley and I'm Chair of this committee. Alongside members of the committee, I am joined today by Olivia Quinn, Democratic Services Officer, Henry Biddington, Environmental Health and Licensing Manager, Sue Mullins, Legal Services Manager, Claire Enyon, Planning Manager, and John Careford, Head of Development. Housekeeping. Committee members, when invited to address the meeting, please ensure your microphone is switched on so that it is picked up via the live audio feed. When you've finished addressing the meeting, please turn off your microphone immediately. Please ensure you have switched off or to silent any other devices that may interrupt the proceedings. Please note this meeting is also being broadcast live and members of the public not in attendance today are able to view the proceedings. Now we move to the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Harding, Councillor Grocott, Councillor Rock and Councillor Shenton.
Thank you. Do any committee members have any interest that they would like to declare in relation to items on the agenda? No? Thank you. If there are any points members wish to raise, please indicate, otherwise I will take the minutes as noted. Okay, minutes noted. Oh, sorry.
Can I point to... Thank you. Apologies. Point to the minutes of March the 6th, page 2, minute number 544, bullet point number 4. I think the word stock should be the word stop. I'm just trying to illustrate that I take minutes seriously.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. It will be amended. Any other comments? Thank you. We move on to minutes of subcommittees. If there are any points members wish to raise, please indicate. Otherwise, I'll take the minutes as noted. Okay. Thank you. Start of time of meetings is the first item on the agenda. Do I have any comments? Anybody wish to comment on the 3 p.m?
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Personally, I would prefer an early start. We used to be at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I feel that 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it sort of cuts through half the day. So I don't know what other people think. It was always 10. It cleared the day out, but today, 3 o'clock seems it cuts through half the day. So I would prefer 10, Madam Chair.
Any other comments, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think given that we have people who are in full-time employment, having a meeting earlier would exclude those who would need to take time off. So I would prefer the meeting to stay at the current time. Thank you.
I have a personal preference for purely personal domestic reasons that I would go along with. I'm satisfied with 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
I just wonder, given Councillor Mill's point about it sort of cutting across, would another option be to move it an hour later to 4 o'clock? Would that be any better?
Councillor Wally-Hoggins.
I suspect that the people that would like to tell us about the timings are actually not here today. So we probably need to get a feel for that, because I think we're quite close to the edge today of being corporate, and I think therefore we actually need to talk to the people that are not here as well. I think I'm keen that we don't any changes in time and any later than 3 o'clock then starts to impact on officers' time as well. And I think we perhaps need to do this by written email so that people that are not here can respond to that, because there may be the reason that they're not here is they just cannot make 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I was actually going to say that I think we're rather thin on the ground to make this decision because there'll be other people, but I actually do rather lean towards Councillor point of view that we've got to take into account people who've got full-time jobs. So I think, can we do this by email? Or should we actually... On that advice, could we take a vote on 3 o'clock? Who would actually prefer to keep the time as it is for the time being at 3 o'clock from this committee? Thank you. That's carried. So we'll stay at 3 o'clock. Public participation, non-received. Thank you. Councillor questions, non-received. Thank you. I've rearranged the agenda slightly, and the enforcement update will now be discussed at the end of this committee. So if we can move on to environmental health and licensing update, may I invite Mr. Biddington to present his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon, committee. This is a report updating the environmental health and licensing team work since the last committee meeting. One of the requests that I've been asked at the last couple of committees is how we are demonstrating outcomes from the team services. So I've included within this committee report, and I intend to do so with the agreement of the committee, an update on our KPIs and our internal performance indicators, and I've included the service plan as an appendices to demonstrate that we are measuring our outcome of success as a team. So the first part of the report will just give some updates on what the activities of the team have been since the last committee meeting, and then I will briefly run through the service plan to give you an idea of how we'll be reporting our outcomes. And hopefully that's sufficient for what the committee were requesting in the last couple of meetings we've attended. So I'll go through the specific areas. So the environment, health and licensing is split into two main teams, the environment health team and the licensing team. So our environment health team is split again into food and safety and environment protection. So our food and safety, so we've done our figures for this year and identified how many food premises will need inspection depending on their risk rating. And for those that aren't informed, the category A are the highest risk premises and they're inspecting every 6 months. They're either very poor performing or very high risk premises. They're large scale manufacturers which need more inspection and so on. So category B will require inspection every 12 months, category C every 18 months and category D every 12 months. Sorry, every 24 months. And then we have 6 approved premises, which are premises which need additional work done to them because they're basically premises which are producing product of animal origin. So things like meat processors and places like that, which again, or dairy products, dairy premises which need additional scrutinisation. That's not even a word, sorry, scrutiny. The distribution, so again, I've just included a distribution of our hygiene ratings, just for information. We can see that we've got quite 99.1% of our premises are broadly compliant, which means they're scoring 3, 4 or 5, which is very good compared to the national average of 69%. So it actually demonstrates that our food businesses do take food hygiene seriously, and that our officers work diligently to ensure that those that don't score highly improve. We've submitted our 6 monthly return to the Food Standards Agency, and there's some figures there on what the activities that we've done and what's been submitted. Moving on to health and safety, so we continue to work with the we continue to facilitate and chair our safety advisory group for Stratford, which is a multi-agency meeting with the police, the fire service, West Midlands Ambulance Service, and various other partners to ensure that events, we give advice on event safety and make sure that large-scale events happen safely. We've been working with our events team on the new application process for road closures and events on Stratford-on-Avon district land. We've produced some new guidance on risk assessments and event management plans, which we're going to roll out with our newly appointed parish liaison officer for advice for parish and town councils when they're carrying out events. And we've also investigated 14 accidents which were reported on premises that council has enforcement jurisdiction. Sorry, have received, 4 of which were major and would receive further investigation. Our licensing team, sorry, I've missed a page there. So environmental protection, there's some figures there on how many service requests we've received, broken down into various things: noise, burning, dog fouling, drainage. Is quite a wide remit that our environmental protection team have. The private water supplies, we've carried out 4 private water supplies, and we've had a Regulation 18 notice complied with, which is a notice to make somebody improve their private water supply. We've had the PSPO for dog fouling, dog control, sorry, has come into force following its approval from the Reg Committee at the last meeting. Our licensing team, again, have been busy and working hard. We did an operation with the DVSA and the police in Stratford. I've put the link there in the report, where we had pulled over 11 vehicles, taxi licence vehicles, 3 of which weren't carrying the correct documentation, and one of them had a brake light out, so they've had sufficient warnings. We've also taken fairly unusual steps of revoking private hire licence for Claremont cars for a number of reasons, including they were using drivers who didn't have valid private hire licences and allowing unlicensed drivers to drive the vehicles, amongst other things. So we've revoked their private hire licence. We've had a number of licensing panels, which you've seen the subcommittee minutes for, hopefully in the previous section of the agenda, but just for highlights on those. So probably the more, so we had one for Blackwell Grange, which is a wedding venue, which applied to extend time license. Sorry, applied to extend its license for further time, which that was refused by a panel. We had an off-license application which was granted, and we've had the Music and Cider Festival, which went to panel and was refused based on the grounds of public safety and public nuisance. So that's kind of the updates from the team. So just moving on to the next part, which is our Environment, Health and Licensing Service Plan. So I've included an appendix of the plan, but this has got a number of, so we've got the corporate key performance indicators, which we've run through overview and scrutiny, so they'll be adopted as part of the corporate, which we haven't had previously. So we've developed those, and we've got some internal service-specific performance indicators which sit with our plan. So I've put those table into the report, but they're also part of the appendix, which is the service plan in full. So that will just give us, I guess it just helps us to monitor what's going on, making sure we're hitting our targets, making sure that the officers are completing the work that we need to complete to meet our statutory functions. We are monitored anyway by a number of quasi-government organisations, including the Food Standards Agency, the Health and Safety Executive, DEFRA, the Drinking Water Inspectorate. So we aren't without scrutiny. This makes sure that internally we're ensuring that we are completing what we're supposed to be completing. And there's also some actions within to the high-level priority council plan, which again, the Environment, Health and Licensing team haven't previously had, so we've included those into the report. So I think that there's options. I think it's just to note the report and approve the future method reporting. So my plan is going forward is that we'll report on the KPIs, which will be reported to overview and scrutiny anyway, but we'll also give you an update on how we're doing with our our service-specific performance indicators, so you can see that we're making progress and ensuring that we're hitting our targets, and updates on where we're with our high level priorities in the council plan. So that's how I intend to go forward with the report with the consent of the committee, so we can show that we've actually got some outcomes of what we're doing.
Thank you. Comments from councillors?
Just say thank you very much. It's always very good to hear the reports come through. Very, very thorough. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Curtis. Then Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of things. Yeah, thank you, Henry. 1.2.1, the high compliance in the food standards, I think has to be a credit to you and the team. I mean, that seems to be exceptionally high. I'm just going to do a Councillor Harvey, if I may, in 132. I'm sure he was going to pick this up as well, but the licence variations and the new premises licences should be with a C rather than S, as it's the noun rather than the verb. There you are, Councillor Harvey. I'm sure.
Thank you, Councillor. Noted.
I've got two questions. Number one.
Sorry.
Beg your pardon?
Yes, it was only to say that I found this service plan admirable, and it's good to see such a detailed document presented to us. It's easy to read, and anybody looking at this sees a clear direction from your team. And I'm sitting here in bewildered awe at it. Thank you so much. I hope that we can expect to see reports of this calibre, perhaps from other teams, coming into this meeting. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor. I can't take credit for the template. It is a council-wide template, so thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask my two questions together, and you can do with them what you will? First question is, given the responsibilities you have for the teams you have, what are the three things that keep you awake at night?
3 things.
Only 3 things. And secondly, is there any sensible way in which the performance of this council's functions for which you're responsible can be compared with other local authorities' performance? I realise in asking the question that the answer is probably no, because the workload and the nature of the work varies so widely between local authorities that it's difficult, if not impossible, to make meaningful comparisons. But I wondered whether there are any national standards by which you can judge your performance. Or, for instance, where do you get your performance targets from? How do you know that they're stretching enough, but that they're not silly? So can you provide, apart from the 3 things you worry about, can you provide any comment on whether it's sensible to look for inter-council comparative information in order to be able to see just how well this council is served by your functions?
Thank you, Councillor. On the first question, I'm quite lucky. I sleep really well, so not a lot keeps me awake at night. But I would say, I mean, I'm very lucky to have such a good team and to have such good officers. The only things that would worry me is things that we can't see coming along, you know, things that happened like the pandemic or, you know, something along those lines, which will cause us to not be able to react. Well, we did react, and we reacted very well, to be fair, to things like that. It's just those unknown things is probably the things that keep me awake at night. I'm comfortable that we can cover off what we need to do with the officers that we have and the capability within the team. So, as I say, not too much keeps me awake at night. In regard to your second question. We do use what we call LDA insights. There are methods of comparing different local authorities. The trouble is they don't necessarily compare like with like, so we're kind of working around those things, but that is part of what we do when we look at performance indicators. And obviously they have to be, we have to work within smart parameters. They have to be achievable. They have to be realistic. We can't just, so we are looking at what is realistic, what's achievable, but what's making sure that we're achieving what we need to achieve for our, as I say, our scrutiny from our other organisations, such as the Food Standards Agency. So there is a mixture of things which go into these KPIs, but we do a bit of benchmarking using the insight sites, but it's quite difficult because, like I say, different councils have different ways of delivering their services, so it's not always like for like, but we certainly look at those things when we're developing our service plans.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Petrovic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Henry. And I think I would like to echo what has already been mentioned in terms of excellent compliance around the food safety. I was just wondering, because it is so high, and in my other professional life, I do work with other councils who maybe have lower performance. How are we comsing them? Because I think that is really a great success, and also promoting those businesses that are achieving the 5-star rating. Is there an opportunity for us to use our comms team to promote some of those businesses and also to raise the awareness of the importance of the food safety regulations? And then the second question was, again, kind of with my professional interest in healthier food environments. From the new businesses, the 203 that are due to be inspected, do you by any chance have an estimate of how many of those are fast food outlets versus other categories? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We don't currently promote the 5 rating, although that is something we have. I know other authorities within Warwickshire have done, and other authorities also have. They don't seem to do it in this authority. Local newspapers say they will publish low ratings and high ratings, but we don't seem to have that within Stratford. So we're going to speak to the comms about whether we need to push. We can certainly publicise our higher rated premises to promote how that they're doing really well. We are lucky in Stratford. Most of our food business operators want to be good, and they're in a competitive industry, particularly in Stratford, when you've got a lot of premises all competing for maybe a slightly shrinking tourism market. Let's hope it's growing again. So yeah, it's a good point, and I'll take that away. In relation to the numbers that are fast food, I don't have those figures on what predictions would be. Fast food or unhealthy food premises, so I won't be able to give those to you. And I'm not sure that it's something, although it's a public health issue, appreciate that, I'm not sure it's something that we necessarily look at from a food hygiene point of view.
Yeah, it's almost a follow-up question to Councillor Petrovic's question, because I'm seeing more and more of these delivery drivers with the containers on the back of their, what do these drivers who are clearly handling food products, what is the laws around that? And are there any inspections of those bags that they just seem to stuff things into? Sorry, I'm just asking the question, really. It does alarm me that it is a continual cycle of food, different types of food products going into those bags as well. Anyway,
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I mean, with our food inspections, obviously they're only ever a snapshot of what we see on that day, but we do ask to inspect delivery vehicles and things like that. Now, obviously, with the proliferation of food delivery companies, they may not have those vehicles on site because literally they're acting as an agent in between. So, at the moment, not a lot, I should think, but that might be something we need to talk to the FSA about how we regulate that a bit better. So I think it's probably, I don't think there's a lot of regulation goes on with Just Eat and the delivery drivers rather than the companies as such. But they are required, to be on Just Eat, or sorry, I've just said that twice, to be on one of these platforms which deliver for company. They do have to have a minimum of a food hygiene rating, but that's not regulating the drivers necessarily.
Thank you. May I just actually raise a couple of points? Interesting in 1.2.3, filthy and verminous, 48. It just seemed to me quite a high number. that just sort of leapt out at me. The other thing is, I had training on Tuesday from the licensing on, 6-hour training, which was quite intensive. It came up several times about taxis being licensed other than where we are, like Uber and Wolverhampton. And there was a very strong push to contact our MPs to actually try and actually move on this. However, you actually raised quite a few issues in the taxis about people not conforming and licences being removed. This is only to do with our own licensing of taxis. So we don't, if that's a percentage of our taxes, do we have a view of a percentage of the taxes which are coming in, which we have no control over? Because there might be issues going on there which could be detrimental to residents.
In response to your first comment about filthy and verminous, that is the type of job, so it may be rats on a premises. It's not necessarily they're all filthy and verminous properties, so it's kind of a category we've taken off our database. So, yeah. In relation to cross-boundary licensing, as you say, we don't have powers or control over other taxis which are licensed in other authorities. We work closely with those authorities when we come across issues with licenses. And at the moment, I'm probably not in a place to comment on my opinion of whether cross-boundary licensing is a good or a bad thing. It's in place, and that's what we have to follow.
Thank you. Any other comments? Can I just endorse what councillors have said on the excellence of the report and the ease of its reading? Thank you very much. Look forward to report at our next meeting. Thank you. We now move on to item 10 on the agenda, and I invite Sue Mullins to present her report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The Legal Services team got approval to the recruitment of a trainee solicitor as part of its establishment in the 2023 financial year, 2022-2023. We recruited successfully, and the trainee, Matt Lube, started with us in January 2024, so she's just about 18 months through her training contract. As part of the process for having a trainee solicitor, we have to apply to the Solicitors Regulation Authority to be an authorised training provider and appoint a training principal, both of which we've done. And as we are now an authorised training provider, we have certain obligations to the trainee to ensure that we're providing them with adequate training to enable them to qualify at the end of their training period. The SRA has set out a number of the types of skills and abilities that they expect trainee solicitors to acquire over their period of training, and these are set out for you in Appendix 1. I'd draw your attention particularly to the advocacy and oral presentation heading in the middle of page 47, and it goes over to the top third of page 48. So these are the types of things that the SRA says the trainee needs to be able to do when they're qualified, and it gives ideas of the types of activities and opportunities that you can give them to enable them to be able to say they've developed those advocacy skills during their training. In order to develop these skills, the trainee solicitor's already done a number of activities, and these are set out in Appendix 2. Appendix 2 is a confidential appendix, which unfortunately hasn't been printed on the right colour paper, but if you had any questions about Appendix 2, we'd need to go into a confidential session to discuss those. In order to enable Irwa to develop her skills further, we'd like her to be authorised to conduct proceedings on the council's behalf in the Magistrates' Court.
Under Section 223 of the Local Government Act 1972, local authorities can authorise non-qualified lawyers to prosecute and defend matters on their behalf, and this is what you will have done for your council tax officers who go and seek orders, liability orders in respect of council tax. They're not generally qualified lawyers, but you can authorise them to appear on your behalf. And Irwa would fall into the same category because until she becomes a qualified solicitor, she doesn't have automatic rights of audience in the courts. I'm satisfied as Legal Services Manager that Irwa's at a good stage to be able to take that next step into advocacy. There's no guarantee that suitable work will come through the legal team in the final 6 months of her training contract, and obviously we wouldn't send her off to do a 5-day trial on a complicated building regulation prosecution, but we might say she could do a directions hearing or a first hearing where a plea of guilty or not guilty is taken and the matter's adjourned either for trial or to come back for a proof in absence. So we very carefully select the type of hearing that we sent her to on our behalf, and she would be accompanied by someone qualified at the time just in case the need arose for there to be any support provided. So, Chair, I'm asking for Irwa to be authorised in accordance with the recommendation to enable us to offer her this opportunity as part of her training contract if a suitable opportunity arises. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from councillors? Councillor Rowley-Hoggins?
Yes, I'm delighted to hear that the council will be represented by legal personnel of whether trainee or otherwise in court. Can you give me an idea, please, how many times actual officers that are working in this building or working from home actually do go attend court, please?
It's quite difficult because it's across 2 authorities. As we're a shared service, we also do advocacy for Warwick District Council. I can't say that it's every week, but it's certainly monthly.
So how do we keep the skills then? We may, of course, provide this, make sure that Irwa gets the opportunities. But of course, part of training and part of being an exemplar service is that you have to make sure that people's skill set is continually kept up to date. So how do you ensure that as much as possible, and to save costs, because we all know barrister costs and taking outside legal advice is costly, how are you going to manage the fact that you've got quite a team and to make sure that that opportunity, those skills are maintained, as it were, across the department, please?
Chair, I think that's starting to stray a bit beyond the topic of the report, but in general terms, all of the staff within the department undergo training. The requirement for a compulsory number of hours of continuing professional development for solicitors was removed some years ago, but everyone in the team undergoes regular training and development to maintain their skills in advocacy and presentation of cases.
That wasn't the question, and it was relevant because it's all very well training a solicitor and giving you the opportunities, but supposing some work didn't come through, is how many times then the training, say that she qualifies, how many times do solicitors then go on to working for the organisation, go on to go to court on a yearly? Is it just one solicitor that mainly does the court work, or or is it shared amongst? Because what I'm trying to get at here is everybody, her confidence as a solicitor will grow the more opportunities that she gets, whether she's unqualified or qualified. That's really what I'm trying to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Whilst Irwa has been moving through her different seats, we've given her opportunities to attend and sit behind counsel or attend court hearings, to observe other advocates in the course of their work. So, for example, the County Council employs an in-house barrister, and she's attended a couple of hearings that barrister has done on behalf of the County Council. She's due to attend a planning inquiry in a couple of weeks' time to observe examination, cross-examination, re-examination as part of a planning inquiry. So she's continuing to be exposed to those types of environments, and there is a certain amount of knowledge you can gain from that observation. You can pick up different approaches. You can get an idea for how the advocate has asked the question to elicit the information. So there's a certain amount you can gain. But to be honest, the real experience comes when you're chucked in front of a bench of magistrates and you've got to deal with a grumpy clerk, and you need to think on your feet and respond to the questions raised. There is no guarantee that when she qualifies, Irwa would choose to go into a litigation post, and if she chose not to go into a litigation post, there'd be no need for her to continue with her advocacy skills, knowledge and development if that wasn't the direction. So say, for example, she chose to become a property lawyer, you wouldn't need advocacy and court skills. If she chooses to go into a more contentious area of law, then she would. If she stayed with us and was in a litigation post, we'd look for that post to be progressive in terms of the types of work she dealt with. When she was newly qualified, we'd expect a very different level from someone at that stage of their career than someone who's perhaps 4 or 5 years post-qualification. There is always training and support that would be given from other members of the team and from external courses, webinars and practical advocacy mock trials.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey, then Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chairman. You've been approved by the Law Society to supervise the training of this individual. I don't recognise anybody around the table who has similar experience or qualification. Why are you having to ask us for this decision? Why can't you make this decision yourself?
Because it's a power the council has. It's only the council that has power to authorise non-legally qualified staff to represent it in court, and that authority has been delegated to this committee.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. I think this sounds like an excellent opportunity. The council wants to support continued professional development of members of staff. It's an important part of the council's policy for, if you like, for recruitment and retention of staff. And I think if both the monitoring officer and the legal services manager consider the trainee solicitor to be more than capable to undertake the delegation, I'm more than happy to go along with that recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Please, may I have hands raised in approval of the recommendation? Unanimous. And we wish the new sort of lawyer well in her career. Thank you. Now move on to the item which had been we now move on to enforcement, which is now which had been item 8 and is now the last item. So we're on to enforcement, and I invite Claire and Aynan. I always get it wrong. Aynan, to present her report. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. This is the regular report that members should now be familiar with the format of. On page 17, you've got a table showing the cases received per year, with last year having the highest number, 651 cases. On page 18, there's reference to the local enforcement plan review. And I'll just try and get my piece of paper. It refers to the local enforcement plan and that there would be an update of some of the data at this meeting. So the team has had a couple of workshops, and I've been going through all the data of all the enforcement cases over the last 12 to 18 months. I propose to give more details of this data at the training session on the 10th of July, but if I just give you the headings of the data that's being looked at the moment. We've looked at the geographical split of data across cases across the district. We've looked at the number of cases received and specifically the recording of decline to investigate, because that's a topic that often gets raised at this committee, to see how much we're actually declining. We've looked at the reasons for closing, and consistently the pattern is approximately 50% of the cases closed have been closed because there's either no breach or it's a decline to investigate. So it does show that there is a lot of wasted time spent within the enforcement team. So part of the local enforcement plan review is we're going to look at existing processes for triaging the cases upon receipt, and the team are starting to do that already, so that when we do the consultation on the local enforcement plan, we'll be setting out new ways of working. We've looked at patterns of different types of notices issued. So, for example, breach of condition cases, we've looked at the numbers issued, the type of cases that they relate to. Similarly, we've done the same research for enforcement notices. How many served? What types of breaches do they relate to? What are the common themes? We've also looked at the type of nature of the breach that's been reported, and again, it varies. And we're looking at the specific recording and operational process that the officers undergo when they receive a case. So there's a lot of work that's needed, just in terms of some of the administration of the cases, but the data will give an indication to the committee and other members just where the pattern of work is and where the highest volume of complaints relate to, and also an indication of which cases we actually progress to formal action. So I'm not proposing to go for the data today, it was just to let you know that we are doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and we've had some workshops already. Also within the report on page 19, you've got a breakdown of the historic cases, with the oldest case now being in 2019 rather than 2016 previously. We have got a caseload of over 300, which is still very high, and we've got a very high caseload per officer. The officers are ranging between 60 and 70 cases, which is the highest it's been for a long time. Previously, the target was to have no more than 50 cases on hand. Otherwise, you can't manage effectively all the communication on those cases. Page 19 also sets out the table showing all the enforcement action taken per quarter. Again, we seem to have a consistent level of between 5 and 7 notices per quarter. At the last committee, I explained how many notices we'd had appeals on, and again, the data's on that. Appendix 1 has got a copy of the register of notices issued this year. I'm not proposing to go through that information. If members have got specific queries on those cases, I'm happy to answer them as best as I can, but it'll be in the confidential part of this meeting. In terms of notices issued this year, as stated in paragraph 1.4.2, we've served 3 enforcement notices have been issued, 2 have been appealed against, and the third one, we've just got confirmation this week that they're actually complying with the notice. So it's the first enforcement notice in at least 12 to 18 months that has actually shown signs of being complied with. All the others have been appealed against. So that's a positive news this week that we've had for the first time. In terms of the appeal workload, that's all set out from pages 20 onwards. So you've got 11 current enforcement appeals. And at the last committee, I explained that we'd got some appeals going back to 2023. We've chased the planning inspectorate last week because we started getting notification of the appeal site visits for at least 5 cases, but it didn't include these older ones. So we've had notification of 5 site visits this month on the cases identified on page 21 and 22. We've got 3 visits on the same day by the same inspector on the 17th of June. We've had 1 site visit this week, and we've got another one in 2 weeks' time. But the 2 oldest cases, we've chased PINs, and they've said they're waiting for the inspector to confirm the date, but it's likely to be imminent. So hopefully, by the next committee, we may actually have the decisions on all these appeals that have been ongoing for some time now. And I think the outcome of those appeal decisions will help guide us in the future on what to do with specific cases as well. The report also refers to a judicial review of a decision to decline to determine a planning application. We've had notification that the hearing is scheduled for the 18th of August. If the legal parties can't attend that hearing, it might be delayed until October to December this year. So we're still waiting for that date to be confirmed. The report in paragraph 5.8 refers to resources, and I'm proposing to have a discussion on resources in the confidential part of this meeting rather than the open part of the meeting. So if you have any questions, please direct those to the confidential part. Otherwise, the recommendation is that the report be noted.
Thank you. I was just checking on how that was going to happen. Sorry about it. Any questions, comments on the report so far?
Yes, I mean, always a good report from Claire. The enforcement seem to be going up. I don't know the number. I mean, is it higher this year? 600? Was it 651? Was it?
It was the highest last year, and it's shown signs of being consistently high this year.
Because I thought we were going to try and put a stop to it. Is it parish councils putting enforcement, requiring enforcement?
The local enforcement plan review at the moment, at the back of the document, it sets out the 3 different types of cases that will be investigated: the critical, significant and desirable. What we may have to do through the local enforcement plan review is be more specific on what type of cases we will not investigate, because at the moment the majority fall within desirable, and certainly the patterns of the data that I'm seeing is the majority of cases that we ever investigate are desirable. There's very few that are critical or significant. I can give you the data at the training. And on that.
Didn't we try this before though, and not seem to work, does it? Although perhaps it usually comes from parish councils, I believe, and perhaps they haven't got the message.
The complaints come in by a whole variety of means, so it's not just parishes.
Councillor Wally-Hoggins.
Yeah, I mean, as like every councillor here, when I get an enforcement notice, honestly, there are some times that I'm actually cringing, really, because, and I do think, I generally have a hands-off approach to this because you are the experts, but the observation that I would make is that I do think there is perhaps a gap in educating people as to, desirable, etc. Because honestly, some of the stuff that I've seen, and I'm sure it's shared around this table, is it's almost as if enforcement seems to be a snooper's license, really. And I think some of the things that I've seen have been unnecessary, have brought distress to the homeowners as well, or the builders, and to what ends, really. And if you look at the patterns of where some of these enforcement notices are, there are patterns. I could honestly say, hand on heart, I'm not going to say it in an open room, as to where the majority of my enforcement cases come from, and it is just ridiculous. I'm slightly embarrassed by it. So I do try my very best at parish council meetings, but I do think that maybe some education, and that means going out, educating parish councils and so forth, and getting some articles in magazines and newspapers to explain to people. The other incident is, of course, any new build work, is how that's being monitored by actual planning officers themselves, rather than relying on the enforcement team to pick up when things haven't been done properly. So yeah, I'm entirely sympathetic about the numbers going up, but I do think that we need to be more proactive, and there are parish councillors here as well across the district who will be able to help you with that messaging. Thank you.
May I say, Mr. Careford asked to go first. Sorry.
Well, thank you, Chair. I think, Councillor Wally-Hoggins, you've got a point about communication and its expectation management. I noted or jotted down a figure, Ms. Einan, statistic about 50% was no breach or decline to investigate, and I think it's understanding, the decline to investigate, why although it might be a technical breach, we may choose not to, but also, again, trying to make the point that there are a lot of instances where it isn't a breach of planning, and I think that's the message we do need to get out to the community, And yeah, I'm not sure there's an easy way to do that because people are very proud of where they live and they're rightly concerned. But I think that the local enforcement plan is the route to do that. If we can set out, how we're going to operate, then we can use that as a basis to move forward with the parish councils who can then push the message out. I know we are doing a session at the next parish council forum. 26th of June, thank you. With which parishes there, so just a sort of introductory to planning enforcement that hopefully will try and help parish councils' understanding of the enforcement process. But yeah, I think it is quite worrying in a way that half of the cases we're saying actually they're not meritorious to investigate further.
Claire,
It's all right, I was only going to mention the parish council training, so it's an overview of enforcement, but I can highlight the fact that of these patterns where a lot of cases aren't any breaches and they need to perhaps provide more information to demonstrate why it's a breach before we will investigate it. So.
Councillor Harvey.
This probably isn't dreadfully relevant, but I'm frustrated that you're frustrated in that you refer to work which is, I think you used the word wasted time. A nicer way of putting that might be it's unproductive time. And I'm sure everybody wants to minimise that. My particular frustration is that if you're having to spend enforcement officer time on work that ends up being unproductive, I know that there are certain aspects of work that I would want to see investigated and action taken where policy at the moment precludes that. And I know why you preclude it, because you haven't got enough resource to do everything. But I'm thinking particularly of gardens, front gardens, which are strewn with either rubbish or, in one case I can think of in my ward, abandoned cars. I can think, in fact, I can think off my bottom, I can think of two instances in my ward. And it's deeply frustrating that these appear in the street scene, and they are a total eyesore, and they really do need sorting out. I understand why you don't take action in those cases, because you haven't got the resource. And if you could shift the resource from non-productive in order to be able to flex the policy, to be able to have a go at these miscreants, I'd approve that, I'd support that, but I understand your difficulties.
Again, through you, Chair, the reason why we don't look into those at the moment is because there are other departments within the council that have got powers, and actually quicker powers. For the enforcement team to do anything, it would have to be a Section 215 notice, and there's appeal to the magistrate court, so it's not a quick remedy. And with the court process, it can be a costly process, so that's why we removed it from the local enforcement plan so that other departments could pick it up, because they do have powers under community protection warning notices or the empty homes policy.
Name names, please.
Councillor Petrovic.
Thank you. My question was, I guess, just in terms of the register enforcement. So obviously this is public and available for everyone to see on the website, so the residents are able to see that. In terms of just the process, I guess, once the enforcement, and I'm conscious we obviously have the training as well, once the enforcement notice is served, is there any status update that has to be provided at any time, or it can stay open like this for months, years?
Again, through you, Chair, without being site-specific on individual cases, then the enforcement register is updated if a notice is complied with. So we go back to old registers to make sure they're updated. To be honest, that isn't done as frequently as we would like, more because of the time involved in it. If we have queries about a notice asking if it's being complied with, then obviously we will advise somebody. The appeal status tends to, again, that will be updated when we rerun the register. We run the register every quarter, so it's updated for the current year. So for this year, we'll be updating it every quarter, but we're not refreshing the registers sort of last year and previous. Otherwise, an enforcement case will stay open until the case has been resolved, i.e. it's been complied with, or a decision has been taken not to take any further action, even if a notice may have been served historically.
Okay. So just in terms of then communicating with our residents, there isn't really any update that they would be able to get besides what is published on the register.
I would suggest to the public, they look at the register as a starting point. If they've got a query, then they email the planning enforcement email address, which is a duty officer. It's manned by an enforcement officer every day of the week. And they can then check and provide an update on a specific case.
Okay, and would you advise that we do tell our residents and public to do that, or is that quite time consuming and therefore the response can, take a while and cause further frustration?
I would query why they would need the information. Usually if somebody's got an interest in a specific case, they would come to the case officer dealing with it anyway.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further comments? Thank you. Just waiting for some advice about where we go next. That pursuant to section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, the public be excluded from the remaining business of the meeting in view of the fact that the nature of the proceedings would be such that if the public were present, there would likely be disclosure to them of exempt information under paragraph 6 brackets A and brackets B of part 1 of the schedule 12A to the said act as amended. Everybody is content that we move into confidential. Thank you. There is no urgent business.
No urgent business.
So I declare this part of the meeting